the last thing I want to ask you is there has been so much talk in the last couple of weeks about NBA TV ratings being down, and Adam Silver blames less cable subscribers. Others have blamed the 3-point shot, load management. What do you think the biggest problem with the NBA is, or do you think the NBA has a problem?
It does. There's several issues. I do think there is a younger audience that doesn't consume it, and that audience is now becoming a prominent part of your 25 to 54, because we used to dismiss it as it's teenagers, but they're not anymore. They're now over 25, and they don't consume it like we did, where we you put on whatever network it is. I mean, there's a reason why all the regional sports networks outside of the major markets are struggling. It's simply because consuming the product is different now. I mean, I have kids, I have teenage kids, I have kids in their 20s, and I watch how they consume sports. And a lot of the times it's on their phone, not watching a full game streaming, but just if they get an alert, then they might put it on. There's a highlight that they'll watch rather than the whole game. That's just generational. So that's something to figure out. Are we seeing the transition of the NBA from LeBron and Steph Curry as the draws to a younger generation of talented players, but maybe they just don't have that same magnitude? Maybe we're almost oversaturated with too many stars, that there isn't that one, mega star. I think super teams, I think, dynasties, I think rivalries are a big part of NBA history. They've always been. And you're not seeing that now. You're seeing different champions every year. You're seeing different contenders every year. And while that's nice, parity sounds great, it's not a great business model for the NBA, my opinion. I do think you have to have the teams you love to hate, the stars you love to hate. I think there needs to be that bit of a divide. Whereas I have my team, like in the 80s, I was a Knicks fan. But when it came to Lakers Celtics, which side were you on? Because you had to pick a side. Lakers Celtics, Bird Magic. You had to pick a side. You don't have that. Michael versus the field in the 90s. I think Shaq Kobe. There was a lot of that I think was galvanizing for the NBA. And then the Curry years and what they did and bringing in KD and the controversy of all that stuff. There's just something about that draws in. Drama is big for the NBA. The NBA can't try to model the NFL. It's never going to be the NFL. So I feel like there's some of that going on with the league as well. The 3-point thing, overstated. That's now we're trying to be too smart, and we're trying to act like it's the game that's wrong, which is what we did to baseball. And now baseball has all kinds of novelties and pranks and everything else going on in it, that we're trying different things to a point now where we're going to take a guy and let him bat wherever we want to have him bat, which is asinine. The NBA can't do things like move back the 3-point line, take away the 3-point line. Like I almost tried to do a parody of something, and people took it serious on Twitter recently, where I said, what if a dunk was worth 3 points? Would that be good or bad? Like, would that help? Because first of all, a dunk is the most exciting play in the sport.
Yeah.
And if you dunk on somebody and that's 3 point, like guys will be trying to dunk on everybody.
Yeah.
Like you'll try to find ways to get a dunk, right? Instead of a 3. And late in the game, it just changes everything. So I just did it almost as a joke.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the response that people had to that, where some thought it was a good idea, others thought it was stupid. But the point is, it just shows you how far we're going, that we're trying so hard to pick apart the game when it's not the game.
Right.
Brandon, we went from Magic Bird to Jordan to Shaq to Kobe to LeBron to Steph Curry. We don't have anybody next. You can tell me all you want about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. You can tell me all about Anthony Edwards, Wembanyama. You can tell me all you want about these guys. But they don't right now have the compelling draw that those guys did. And why? Because Curry was in the championship every year. LeBron, every year was playing for a title. Kobe, Shaq won a ton of titles. Michael, ton. Magic Bird dominated the 80s. That helped. Now, Luka was good, but this year, the team is not so good. Anthony Edwards, he had a chance to be there, but his team's okay. Wembanyama is good, but his team is like Who is the guy that every year? And Jason Tatum is on arguably the team that has been consistently great, but
Yeah.
he's all right. Like he doesn't draw you in. He's a great player, doesn't have anything compelling about him. And that's because while as a basketball fan, you admire skill and talent. Say Gilgeous-Alexander, you watch him, you're like, wow, that guy's so good. But basketball fans is not who the NBA is trying to bring in. They're trying to bring in the casuals that we all talk about and spit on the ground when we say it. But casuals are what actually gives you ratings. Casuals is why you have all of a sudden this was a great success. Not the diehards. We got you already. I don't need to bring you in. I need to get them addicted. And they're not going to be drawn in if there's nothing compelling about the person. And that's what Curry has done and LeBron has done and all the guys I mentioned before have done. The NBA hasn't found that compelling character that will draw in non-traditional basketball fans who just are interested in this guy because there's something about him that's interesting. And I don't know how you figure that out. You just got to see who it is that emerges because the NBA has been great for 40 plus years because they've had those characters, and it has to do with dynasties, and it has to do with rivalries, and it has to do with compelling characters that draw you in. And right now we don't have any of those.
Yeah, they have super talented players, but they're not must-see TV
Yep,
players,
that's right.
and there's not must-see matchups also. And I do think part of that is because you're not getting the same stars and teams battling each other, beating each other up in the playoffs every year also. Like it takes a few years of that to kind of create those rivalries.
Yeah.
And even from a Knicks standpoint, like Patrick Ewing, Knicks Bulls, obviously, Knicks Heat, Knicks Pacers when I was growing up. But really, anytime Patrick Ewing was playing another like all-star center, like that was must-see TV for me. And you don't have that
Yeah,
aspect of
Bird.
it.
Think about it: Bird, Magic, Bernard King, Dominique Wilkins, Dr. J. Like, think about that era when at that position, small forward,
Yeah.
every night you were looking at like just compelling matchup at the compelling superstar versus superstar. And that was also something that was part of it too. But I do think we're a bit watered down. We're a bit saturated with, guys who are sort of like, and I mean, the elites of the league are all
Yeah.
sort of at the same level,
Right.
but no one is just off the charts. Again, LeBron's 40 and he's top 5 in the league in assists.
Yeah.
Like he's still one of the great players in the game and he's 40. Well, that's great for LeBron James. I don't know how great that is for the NBA.
Yeah.